on the phone Ryan Devereaux of the Guardian newspaper. Ryan, where are you right now?
I'm at the courthouse here in New York City, waiting for Occupy Wall Street protester Cecily McMillan to appear before the judge. McMillan has received a lot of attention here recently after videos surfaced of her detained by police officers on Saturday night after protesters were moved out of Ducati Park. She's in handcuffs and appears to suffer from a seizure on the ground while she's detained. And the videos have been widely circulated and have been discussed pretty extensively and caused a lot of concern among Occupy protesters here.
Now, so she was cuffed. She was having a seizure. Was she asking for medical attention?
Well, we haven't been able to confirm that she had a seizure because attorneys with the National Lawyers Guild haven't been able to speak to her since she was taken into custody. It's been a real struggle with the attorneys here trying to get, trying to actually talk to her and find out what happened. The NYPD said that they used the phrase apparent seizure. So we're unclear exactly what her medical conditions were. As far as whether she was asking for medical attention, that's hard to tell from any of the videos, and one would suspect that while she was convulsing that she wasn't asking for medical attention, but you can hear from the multiple videos that were shot from the scene, onlookers screaming for the police to do something. And from what I've gathered, it took approximately 17 minutes, maybe as long as 23 minutes for an ambulance to arrive to the scene, which has concerned a lot of people because while there were scores of police officers on the ground Saturday night, there were no paramedics in sight, and a lot of people are really troubled by that fact.
And I guess also another question to be resolved is at what point it became apparent, if the police are saying that there was an apparent seizure, one has to wonder at what point it became apparent to them there was a seizure that was taking place, and why didn't they act upon it at that moment?
Right. That's the question that a lot of people are asking, because when you watch the footage, it's pretty apparent to onlookers that something very serious is happening to this young woman. She's laying on the ground, she's jerking about, and she has her hands flex cupped behind her back. It didn't take any time for people to realize that there was there were serious concerns there. I spoke to an EMT who was an EMT from Florida who was on hand that night, who was watching the protest. He was across the street and had a straight line of sight to McMillan. He told me that he was appalled by the way the situation was handled. He and another witnesses, he and another number of other witnesses said that her head was bouncing up and down on the concrete, and the paramedics said that she could have easily died in that situation. People were very concerned about the fact that her head didn't seem to be stabilized at any point during the time when she was convulsing. There are a lot of real issues.
And I want to back up and we just go over what you witnessed on Saturday night, as this was the 6-month anniversary of Occupy, and there was essentially a crowds that amassed in Zuccotti Park. And when we talk about what happened and to this woman, the broader issue here is that there is a pattern by the New York City Police Department that has been treating protesters in such a way that in the rare instances where someone has a seizure, because of the way that they're treating people, you can have a serious medical situation happen. But tell me what you saw on Saturday.
Well, Saturday was a really interesting day where emotions sort of swung back and forth between people being really excited, to be back in the park and speaking to each other, people meeting, talking about politics. Some of the really positive aspects about Ducati Park were on, and Liberty Park is Liberty Square, as the occupiers like to call it, were on full display. People were coming together. They were enjoying each other's company. They were talking about issues. But at the same time, there was a lot of tension in the air, too. It started at about 4 in the afternoon when the police moved in and tried to tried to clear protesters off of a public sidewalk and arrested roughly 6 or 7 in the process. And throughout the day, there was sort of this unease that something could happen. And at about 11:30 in the evening, a man who said he was representing the security company that works for Brookfield Properties, which owns Ducati Park, made an announcement by megaphone that the protesters had violated the rules of the park by setting up structures and bringing in sleeping equipment, sleeping gear and camping equipment, told them that they had to leave the park. He was drowned out by chants of "We are not afraid," "Whose park, our park," those sorts of things. And Brookfield left, and then the police moved in shortly thereafter, scorned the police officers. No way to tell the numbers, but I mean dozens upon dozens, rows upon rows of police officers moved into the park, and the protesters were gathered there in the middle. They had their limbs locked together, sitting nonviolently, and the police began pulling people out of the area in a fashion that just about everyone who witnessed it described as incredibly violent. And I've covered Occupy protests since the beginning, and I've spoken to a lot of people who have been at these protests since the beginning, and the consensus seems to be that this was one of, if not the most violent incidents in the history of Occupy Wall Street in New York City.
Did you see
We're talking about...
Did you see any... I'm sorry. Did you see any police swinging batons?
I didn't personally see any batons swung. I wouldn't be surprised if that sort of thing happened. I saw, a protester thrown into a glass door, leaving a massive crack in the door, and the photo from that incident has been widely circulated online. Had multiple reports from people saying that they were punched in the face, or they watched people get punched in the face. Protesters saying that they saw protesters with police boots on their head. A number of protesters were taken into a city bus, about 17 of them, according to one protester who was managing to tweet and send text messages from inside the bus. He said that a protester had a boot mark on his face. This protester who was tweeting claimed that he was bleeding out of his ear, that his jaw was fractured, that his thumb was broken. It was a pretty disturbing scene by most accounts. There were also reports of police officers directly threatening protesters. There was a real sense of intimidation between the police and the protesters. Being as the police were, intimidating the protesters, and I don't think it was the other way around. The National Lawyers Guild, folks that I've spoken to have noted that the amount of people hospitalized as a result of Saturday's crackdown is larger than they think that they can remember so far in the history of Occupy Wall Street. And the charges that are being leveled against protesters are also more serious. Charges of resisting arrest, which some civil rights attorneys say sometimes means resisting arrest, but also sometimes means getting beat up by the police.
Do you have a number on how many people were hospitalized over the weekend?
From what I've gathered, it is at least 5 and maybe more. 5, potentially 6 or more, but definitely at least 5.
My understanding is that the police were also rather aggressive with the press. You had an incident, is that right?
Yeah, it should be said that there were officers who made an effort. It was a clear effort to try to understand, who had a credentialed press pass and give them access and that sort of thing. But there were numerous incidents where, members of the media weren't respected. I interviewed a photographer who had a bruised arm from a police officer that was trying to get him out of the way. I personally was trying to cross a one-lane street that wasn't being used by cars or anything. I was just trying to cross to go over to interview a couple of bagpipe players who actually were accosted by the police. And this officer stepped in front of me and told me I couldn't. And I said, well, I'm a journalist here. I have a press pass. And he just straight up told me, I don't care. And then this same officer made a similar remark to me later in the evening as the police were moving into the park, clearing everybody out. I had been given permission to stand in the area that I was in by 2 other senior officers. And so I thought I was good, and then I feel this hand on my arm. He turns me around, and he told me that he didn't give a F about my credentials or press pass or the permission that I received to be in the area. So, it goes both ways. I do think some officers are trying to clean up their behavior when it comes to dealing with the press. It seems to me that order, has gone through the ranks to some extent, but it's not something that's resonated with everybody in the department, that's for sure.
And just to be clear, your press pass is issued by the NYPD, is that right?
That's correct. And, covering Occupy Wall Street before, I was actually not working with NYPD credentials, so I've kind of been on both sides and recently received a NYPD press pass. So, in New York City, in order to get a press pass, you have to appeal basically to the police department, show them a body of work that indicates that you have been covering emergency type of situations where you have to cross police lines, that sort of thing. A certain number within a year or so. It's quite the ordeal sometimes to get a hold of these press passes.
And so how many people were in the park as of 11:30 Saturday night?
It's hard to say. There were dozens gathered there in the middle of the park with their arms locked. As I said, maybe 40 to 50 actually, committing civil disobedience and staying in the park. Well, civil disobedience might be debatable since there are questions of whether or not they could have legally been evicted from the area that they were in, given that it's a public space. But about 50 or so holding their ground there, and then several hundred people in the area around the perimeter of the park watching what was going on. The numbers were pretty high on Saturday, compared to recent Occupy-related events and demonstrations.
And what do you think accounts for that? That just the people were excited to come out for the 6-month anniversary? Is it the weather? Is it from your sense of reporting on this over the past 6, I guess, months or so now, that that there's sort of the movement is coming out of, at least, I know there's been activity in terms of specific actions, but in terms of broader protests, is there a sense that there is a push now by organizers to have a sort of a coming out this spring?
Mm-hmm. I think it's a number of the factors that you just mentioned. I mean, Saturday was a beautiful day. It was really nice out, and it was the 6-month anniversary, and people were excited. And Occupy Wall Street organizers have been, putting in a good amount of work over the winter, to sort of shape new actions and that sort of thing. But I think the real reason probably that people came out is that the conditions that precipitated Occupy Wall Street in the first place still exist. The same social and economic conditions that people were upset about 6 months ago still exist. And that's what the protest is supposed to be about. It's about, economic inequality and the concentration of wealth and power within a small segment of the population. And that seems to still be the world that we're living in. And I think as long as that's the case, Occupy Wall Street is going to, continue to find support.
How many people, are you aware how many people were arrested in total on Saturday?
The NYPD says 73 people were arrested. Other estimates have been higher, but as far as we know, officially from the police department, 73.
And are they all having hearings this morning at the courthouse?
No, it's been kind of a mess in terms of hearings and arraignments and that sort of thing. A number of protesters were released yesterday, but it seems that a significant portion are still being held, and some are just released, and some are going to have to follow up with further court appearances.
Have you heard any reports of bonds, bail bonds being the amount being increased if those arrested do not agree to have an iris scan? We've heard reports of that.
I don't know that bail has been increased for people specifically because they refuse it's an iris photograph. But there have been some noticeably high bails set for protesters for charges that are generally considered not too serious. We're talking about like $1,000 bail sets for disorderly conduct, for example. That sort of thing is not typical, but we have been seeing it as a result of Saturday's arrest. And as I may have mentioned before, we're seeing a lot of these resisting arrest charges. So the way in which they're being dealt with legally is different than what we've seen in the past, they being the protesters.
Have you done any reporting as to what may account for that? In other words, with this increased violence by the police, with the increase in bail being set at higher amounts, the charges being sort of ratcheted up a little bit, is there a sense that the city is nervous about the reemergence of Occupy Wall Street? Is there a sense that the police may be trying to drain Occupy Wall Street funds, which have been reported as starting to dwindle a little bit? Do you know anything about?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's an interesting way to look at it, and I haven't read any reporting or seen anything that confirms that is in fact the case. But that idea is certainly floating around Occupy circles. That there's a reason why the city seems to really be pushing back against this what is being perceived as a reemergence of Occupy Wall Street. So, I mean, time will tell in terms of the motivations for why people were charged with what they were charged with, why bails were set, where they were set. But we shall see. It is very interesting the way that New York City is responding to Occupy Wall Street, after Saturday.
Ryan Devereaux, The Guardian, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.